A lot of people say, I was born this way. They think God made them that way no matter how good or bad, when God never intended them to act in the ungodly ways they do. You see, God never intends for people to live a sinful life. God is perfect and holy. The reason why people are so confused is because in this fallen world, many people have been born with evil spirits and demons inside of them due to the actions of their parents and the generational curses from the previous family members which came before them. They've set them up for failure in a rapidly declining world, and they have no real godly or moral role models. There were many people who came to Jesus for healing who were born with evil spirits inside of them. They were born with defects, so God's power and righteousness could be displayed when Jesus healed them. So when people say, I was born this way, what they're really saying is that they don't know the truth, they've been born with shackles, and they can actually be set free. In fact, Satan has intentionally lowered the bar every successive generation and set up sinful stars as their role models. Just because the majority of the population thinks it's normal and okay, they get away with it and it gets worse and worse. Even when God sends his people to try and bring true Pentecostal reformation, the people denounce them. The established sinful societies are only aggravated by those who lead godless lives and those who stand on the lukewarm fence in the face of evil. Those who live in tolerance with this world's way for the sake of peace and unity shall find none. All who should try to keep their lives shall lose it. All those who choose neutrality have actually made their choice. They've chosen the side of sin and the oppressor. Repent.
Next video. That is on the right side of the screen. That is a male named Marcy Bowers. That's a man. The woman in the center is Dr. Johanna Olsen Kennedy. This was a leaked video. This was an internal video conference they were having. And they're discussing the ability of boys who started puberty blockers at Tanner stage 2. Tanner stage 2 is the beginning of puberty. This is when you first develop pubic hair. It's when girls' breast buds first start to form. So these kids are all 10, 11, 12 years old, and that's when they start them on these drugs. Again, these drugs have never been approved for this purpose. These are prostate cancer drugs. These are drugs for endometriosis, for uterine fibroids, but they happen to stop puberty. So they're discussing how it's destroying the future sexual function of all these boys. They admit to this, and I want you to hear it from them.
The second was an observation that I had that every single child who was, or adolescent who was truly blocked at Tanner stage 2 has never experienced orgasm. I mean, it's really about zero. These are of course, these are just assigned male at birth, so trans feminine, and it's because they never in their lives are exposed to testosterone. That doesn't change. So blockers prevent the rise of testosterone, and they don't really go on testosterone at or around surgery or into adulthood. And so we don't know. They're going to have this sensation. There's no question about that. But are they going to be able to achieve sexual satisfaction? It's important in relationships. And I know that from my work with female genital mutilation survivors, that the lack of being able to be intimate with a partner is very important. And so this is what really raised the red flag for me, is to say, look, we need to have our eyes open about it. I think it's been beneficial talking about it. I know Joe and many others have reported to me, they've changed their approach a little bit in their informed consent models, and that we're talking about masturbation now. We're talking about, okay, that's an area of the body that's got very dysphoric for you, but you know what? It's all a penis is just a large clitoris. I mean, it's all the same material. It really is. So use it for the pleasurable purposes, partially that it was intended, and we'll see what happens. But these are to be answered questions. So can we avoid puberty and get good adult results? And secondly, how do we assure someone that they're going to be able to be sexually responsive? Do we remove the blockers during the course of their adolescence? and let a little bit of puberty come back. Do we delay it a little bit? Maybe into Tanner's 3 or 4, maybe before they have their first orgasms, maybe?
I apologize for the graphic nature of this. It's important to understand. That's the president of WPATH. That all the countries that you represent, they write the standards of care. All the countries, gender clinics, all follow their standards of care. The UN pushes their standards of care. The WHO pushes their standards of care. That's the president. And what's he saying there? He's saying, what do we do? Do we let a little bit of puberty happen? Do we take them off the blockers, let a little puberty happen? Do we delay the puberty blockers? They don't know what they're doing. They don't know. He admits it. This is an experiment on children, the most vulnerable children among our society. For over 5 years now, I've been on a mission to raise awareness about what I consider to be the greatest child abuse scandal in the history of modern medicine, the practice of what is known as gender-affirming care, or colloquially known as trying to change the sex of children with puberty-blocking drugs, the opposite sex's hormones, and surgeries. All because of this idea that these children are what is known as transgender. Now, this might be shocking to some, but I maintain that there's no such thing as a transgender child. I have had thousands of conversations on the street. I go to university campuses all around the world. I go to conferences. I work with psychologists, psychiatrists, doctors, all the major conservative organizations across the West as well. And in all of my time having these tens of thousands of conversations, I haven't yet met one person who can tell me what a transgender child is. What does it mean to be transgender? What does it mean to have a gender identity? I am going to go through a few slides today to discuss what I consider to be really one of the greatest lies ever told in the history of the human race. The positive message we should be sending our kids is that they're beautiful just as they are. Instead, they're getting a message that they were born wrong and they need to change their body. The only thing that is affirming in children is self-hatred. And we'll get into what type of children these are who are identifying this way, and in particular, we'll get into what type of children are going to gender clinics and what's being done to them. But let's go to the first slide if we can. Thank you. So this is difficult to read from your distance, but this is honestly the most used resource in the world when defining what these various terms surrounding gender ideology are. So this is called the Gender-Bred Person. This is produced by an activist. And it defines on the left side there, under gender identity, It says that we're all on a scale of womanness or manness, and that our gender identity is based on our personality, our job, our hobbies, our likes and dislikes. And I would maintain that this is a rather regressive and sexist way to look at what your gender is. What does your job have to do with your gender? What do your hobbies have to do with your gender? Are we going to tell little boys who like to bake with their mom in the kitchen that that must put them on the female spectrum of gender? That's absurd. Are we going to tell girls who don't want to wear dresses and who want to have short hair, perhaps who like to play sports with the boys, that that makes them a boy? This is nonsensical. More than half of the women growing up are what we would call in North America tomboys. It's just more fun, perhaps. You don't have to wear a dress to be a girl. The positive message, again, we should be sending kids is there's no right or wrong way to be a boy or a girl. If a boy is more effeminate, he's not trans. He's just a boy. But this ideology has come along, and it's taught our children that if they don't conform to what are these stereotypes, that they might be transgender, that they might have been born in the wrong body, and that the solution for them is to go on drugs that have never been approved for this purpose. We are giving children chemical castration drugs that are used to this day on sex offenders. They're given to pedophiles. In certain states, and even in Canada, they have been required for pedophiles to be eligible for parole, that they received these chemical castration drugs. The same drug is now called a puberty blocker. What are these drugs? These are gonadotropin-releasing hormone analogs. They stop the pituitary gland from releasing a couple hormones called luteinizing hormone and follicle-stimulating hormone. And these are what are responsible for the generation of your sex hormones at the onset of puberty. Girls develop estrogen. Boys produce testosterone. And this is what causes us to generate what are known as our secondary sex characteristics. All the things that happen during puberty. Boys get stronger, they get a deeper voice, they get a hairy face, hairy body. Girls develop their breasts, their hips get wider. While children are on these drugs, none of these secondary sex characteristics will develop. The idea being that we need to keep these children looking neutral. Because if we don't, they will develop into a man or a woman, and that will make it harder for them to pass as the opposite sex when they're an adult. So I don't want you to take my word for anything here. We're going to go over a few of the videos that these doctors at these gender clinics have produced. So first, let's hear from, this is Dr. Jeremy Carswell. She is at the gender clinic at Boston Children's Hospital. She's the director of their gender multi-specialty clinic. This was the first gender clinic that opened in the United States of America back in 2007. And she's going to talk about really what it is to be transgender.
A child will often know that they are transgender from the moment that they have any ability to express themselves, and parents will often tell us this. We have parents who tell us that their kids, they knew from the minute they were born practically, and actions like refusing to get a haircut or standing to urinate, trying to stand to urinate, refusing to stand to urinate, trying on siblings' clothing, playing with the, quote, opposite gender toys, things like that. There is more and more a group of adolescents that we are seeing that really are coming to the realization that they might be trans or gender diverse a little bit later on in their life. So what we're seeing from them is that they always sort of knew something was maybe off and didn't have the understanding to know that they might be trans or have a different gender identity than the one they had been assigned. So that is a growing population that we are seeing, and that's being recognized as being trans and able to be treated.
So if you have a child playing with the opposite gender toys, they might be trans and eligible to be treated. If a little girl tries to pee standing up or a boy tries to pee sitting down, they might be transgender. Guess what? If a little girl has 3 big brothers, she's going to try to pee standing up because they're all peeing standing up and it looks kind of fun. They're kids. She said if they're trying on a sibling's clothing, they might be transgender. Again, a little boy with 3 big sisters, they're all going to be playing dress up with their little baby brother. But these doctors come along who have bought into this ideology, and they teach that this natural play is a sign that your child is transgender and can be treated. And guess what? They're seeing patients as young as 3 years old, where they start socially transitioning them with a new name and pronouns.